Hey YouTubers, Electric Adventures here with my Atari 40th anniversary special. This is, sort of instigated. I was going to make a video anyway, but Trouble 8385 also, put the thing out for people to make their thoughts and special on what Atari has brought to us over all these years. And for my response, I've decided to concentrate on both the Atari 2600 and the Atari 8-bit systems, because they did come out, pretty much at the same time. Obviously the 8-bit computer was a little after the Atari 2600, but not by much, because it was the next improved version of the graphics chip that's in the 2600 with more memory, of course. And both systems got off to simple steps with the games, and the games rapidly improved as they realised the power and tricks they could do to get the system, both systems, to do better and better graphics. So each of these, so I'm basically going to do a top 10, and it's a mixture, pretty much half and half, of 2600 and 8-bit. So the first one, of course, goes pretty much all the way back to the beginning. Well, it wasn't a true, straight launch title, and my number 10 is Space Invaders for the 2600. This is the game that made the 2600 really start to sell and take off, and show that you could bring the arcade home. It doesn't have the most exact gameplay of versions of Space Invaders. There is an early version of Space Invaders for the 8-bit computers as well. It's a little more accurate, but it still doesn't replicate the arcade feel. There's actually a Space Invaders Deluxe cartridge that has a mode that's a bit more closer to the arcade game. So yes, number 10, Space Invaders. Number 9, flipping over to the 8-bit computers here, we go for Star Raiders, a game that I spent countless hours playing. It's an in-cockpit, one of the very first in-cockpit flying games, with a galactic map where you could, select different areas. It also came out on the 2600 with slightly simpler graphics, but the Atari 8-bit computer version was probably the version that I really fell in love with and played a lot of. And it is quite a good game, although you do need to learn quite a few keyboard commands to actually make it work. So the video that appears up there will probably show me mucking around with some of the controls. It depends which segment I select. Actually, the Atari 2600 version came with a special number pad controller. Now, I currently don't have that game yet, and that's one I would actually love to get in my Atari 2600 collection at some stage. Now, number 8, and once again we're going to go for the Atari 8-bit version, is Missile Command. This is one of the best home versions of Missile Command on any of the systems. Now, obviously, it's very clever how instead of having the 3 rocket bases that you launch your things from, because of course you're dealing with only a single button joystick, they combine it to a central base that, if it gets hit, will replenish with the other 2 bases that you have at your command, but you still only have a finite amount of ammo. It plays very well. It's quite hard. It's actually really good to play with a trackball, and I use my Wico trackball to play it. And it's an excellent game that I find myself playing again and again. Now, number 7, still staying on the Atari 8-bit here. No, actually, sorry, correction. I decided, the late thing, I decided to replace the 8-bit version with the Atari 7800 version, because it is, in mind, the version that's closer to the arcade game. Now, saying that, the actual Atari 2600 game, although using a lot simpler blocks, actually plays really well, has quite nice sound, and the speed is amazing. Now, all 3 of those versions are also excellent playing with a trackball, so I do tend to like trackball games by the looks of it. So a very good game. Now, down to my number 6, and this is an adventure type game, of course, a classic, and it's Pitfall. Pitfall, a game that was just so amazing how colourful and detailed the graphics were on the 2600. and how many screens there were. It was one of the first one that implemented a multi-screen game on the 2600. I mean, there's something like 255 screens, and you can, there's all sorts of pitfalls that you have to get past, and if you haven't played it for a while, as I'm aptly demonstrating in the sample video there, it can be quite tricky. An interesting concept that you could walk through all 255 screens up the top, but you wouldn't actually be able to make it at the time, even if you didn't hit anything. So you have to go underground, where you flip a larger number of screens at a time. So there's a bit of strategy involved, a bit of investigation. A game that's probably almost impossible to play on your first and complete on your first try, because you need to have a map, unless you cheat and use a map out of a magazine, which didn't actually come along until a bit later. But an excellent complex game. And now my number 5, the next one, is also a 2600 game. Now, sorry if my demo is a little glitchy, but I don't have a set of Atari paddles that work properly. I probably need to I do actually have a couple of sets, so I need to take them apart and clean them, and it's kaboom! Now this game, myself and my friend on his Atari 2600, which is the wood grain one sitting on the cabinet behind me, played this for hours and hours, and it was actually amazing how far we got through the game. I mean, at the end of the day, you're working on pure reflex and virtually like driving across the lanes of bombs. And sorry I couldn't demonstrate it properly in this video, but just getting it out to play it for this top 10 reminded me of how much I liked it, and that I need to fix those battle controllers so I can give it a real good go. So future demonstration pending, and I used to be quite good at it. I will say he was slightly better, so I don't think I ever completely beat him. But because we were competing against each other, we actually got a long way through the game, and it gets extremely fast and extremely hard the further you go through. Okay, now for my number 4. Now there is actually a very good version of this on the 8-bit and other systems as well, but I'm going to pick the original one, the Atari 2600 one, which is River Raid, because of, once again, how much they achieved on the machine. It is once again colourful, reasonably high-res graphics. It has lots of action that continues to develop as you go through the stages. It's a reasonably challenging game, a game that you can come back again and again and play. And it uses some quite respectable graphics techniques to enable it to have so much colour and what looks like a lot of action on the screen. And very clever use of moving objects around to simulate scrolling. In other words, it's not actually scrolling the whole screen and achieving a very good effect. Just highly respect the programming of this game. Now we're getting down to the business end of things. Now number 3. So number 3, once again, it is a 2600 game, and it is Sequest. Yet another Activision game. I mean, they did bring out so many. This is probably my favourite shooter type game on the 2600. And I did, for a short time anyway, hold the world record for this game. Not that I can remember what that is. I still haven't actually found the old record breaker thing that I got. Now, I recorded my record in the Flashback Arcade Club that I spoke about in a previous video about the original arcade. So that's where I got my record breaker thing from, and I was on the table for a short period of time. I also did have a go at the record for another game that will be coming up in a minute, but I never beat it, because there was one guy who just got an enormous score. I truly can't remember how much that Sequest score was. Depending on how I go with video editing up there, I actually had a From Cold game and got near 100,000 while I was doing the thing. I kept on playing and couldn't stop, so you're not going to see all of that in this particular video, of course, because it will make it take up too much room. Now my number 2 game is flipping back to the Atari 8-bit here, and this is the best version that I have, although the Atari Lynx version comes close, just that it is a small handheld and nothing like playing it on the large screen. And the Lynx has higher resolution graphics, so the characters aren't so blocky, but it's Robotron. Robotron is an awesome shooter, and I play it again and again on the Atari 8-bits and keep coming back to it. It's actually a game that I would love on the Atari 7800 because it is supposed to be that much better. High resolution graphics, but unfortunately it did not come out in the PAL region, and I don't, and it's not one of those games that works on a PAL machine. Yeah, so I don't have an I've got a PAL 7800, so I'm a bit stuck there for the moment. And that is supposed to be the best version of Robotron, but no, for the moment the Atari 8-bit version is the version I'll have to stick with. You know, just Atari arcade conversions for the home systems were just so good. Okay, and now down to the number one. Now this game came out on the 2600 and the Atari 8-bit, but the Atari 8-bit version is in my mind the closest to the arcade game in feel, sound and graphics that you're going to get, and it is Defender. Now, this is a game that I am reasonably good at once I get warmed up. I'm never good at it on first play. It's an atrocious game first play. And interesting enough, you need to have the Atari 8-bit computer set up in just a way so that your foot is near the space bar, which is what I use for doing the smart bombs. It's one way of getting through the game and playing it. You can end up quite cramped sometimes. But I have got a reasonably decent score on this again, building it up again, but I love this game. It is just such a good version. And the Atari 2600 version, although no near as close, was actually a reasonable representation, and that's the one I'm talking about with the world record that I tried to go for and beat, but it was just too hard a game and I never made it. You never know, might have a go in the future. So there we go, there's my top 10 to celebrate Atari's 40th year. For those who don't know, I also have quite an extensive collection of Atari hardware. I'm still going because there are so many different models. I still have a couple of the early models to go, and there are, you know, I only really have one model representing the ST series nowadays. I'm not really sure whether I want to extend the collection to collect all those, but we'll see how we go in the future. But anyway, no, I enjoy collecting the machine all the way through from the original Atari 400 I have there all the way through to the Atari XE system, which I usually use for most of the game demos because it's most convenient. Alright, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Make sure you check out Trouble 8385's original video as well, and celebrate Atari's 40th anniversary with the rest of us. And I'll catch you next time.